Yo, what's going on? It's me, Jay. We're here to talk about the biggest news in hip hop right now. The thing that everybody is talking about, the thing on everybody's lips right now. No, it's not the Diddy case. Finally, we moved away from that whole Diddy controversy that was raging a couple months ago. We moved to the beef in hip hop, the newest beef in hip hop. Kendrick Lamar in one corner versus Drizzy Drake in another corner. Now, this is an old beef. This is not a new beef. This beef been going on for a minute now, about 8 years. But recently, it was reignited by Kendrick. By Kendrick, you know what I mean? He came at Drake hard on that like that song, featuring him in Future, and he was throwing heavy subliminals, trying to reignite, I guess, the kind of buzz that he had in 2013 when he came at them with Control. It all started with when J. Cole mentioned the big three: Kendrick, Aubrey, and me. And then Kendrick heard it, and Kendrick was like, "Nigga, fuck the big three, homie. It's just Big Me on that like that soundtrack." And also came at Drake with a few subliminals. For example, telling him that, well, if he's Michael Jackson, if Drake is the Michael Jackson in this equation, then Kendrick is the Prince in this equation, and Prince outlived Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? So uh, that's how the beef started. And then Drake comes with his response that was totally weak. And then Kendrick comes out with Meet the Grams, where he supposedly exposes that Drake has another child, another hidden child, a daughter, supposedly. And then Drake comes with his track Meet the Family, where Family Matters, where he exposes Kendrick's problems with Kendrick and his baby's mom. Then Kendrick comes with Euphoria, and on Euphoria, Kendrick destroys Drake. I mean, utterly demolished Drake. Drake was lyrically murdered on this track, Euphoria, guys. This shit obliterates Drake, basically accuses Drake of being a culture vulture, being a dude from Canada, which I gotta say though, in my opinion, and I'm not even saying this as a Drake fan necessarily, but in my opinion, I feel like the "you're from Canada" shit is old. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's what you're gonna come at him with, oh, you're not really authentic. You know what I mean? You're from Canada. You know what I mean? You're not really in the streets like that, which we know Drake is not uh, a street tough, hardcore hip hop artist like that anyway. You know what I'm saying? But he coming at him like he ain't even black no more. You know what I mean? He even says that he can't even, you know what I mean? On the song, he takes away his N word pass basically. You know what I mean? So he's coming at him on some real hard body shit, and subliminally this J Cole as well, because we all know that J Cole bowed out of the, J Cole was in it, then he made a song, and then he retracted the song and he said sorry about it, which I think when it comes to hip hop and when it comes to rap, you know what I'm saying? It's a sport, guys. You know what I'm saying? It's like a sport. You don't want to never, you're in a fight, right? You don't ever want to turn down a challenge, when you got a challenge faced to you. You know what I'm saying? If you do, then you punked out. You know what I'm saying? I get in a sense where J. Cole was coming from. You don't want to promote violence. You don't want to Uh, there's an atmosphere around hip hop, especially if you was a kid that grew up in the '90s. You know what I mean? You remember, uh, uh, you remember Biggie and Tupac. You remember the ramifications of the Biggie and Tupac beef. What became of that? You know what I mean? And you have fear that that may happen. Again. But in all actuality, there's been a lot of beefs since then, and that has not happened. Shit like that has not gone down. Cannabis and LL has been a beef for a while. Nicki Minaj and Cardi B has was a beef. Um, uh, Famously, Jay Z and Nas, Beanie Siegel and Jadakiss. You know what I mean? That's the and so many others. Eminem with a lot of people. Eminem with Lord Jamar. Eminem with Melly Mel, Melly Mel, if you could call that a beef. Eminem with Rick Ross. 50 Cent with Rick Ross. A lot of other hip hop artists. That's the Eminem with Benzino for years and years. Still going on to this day to some extent. But that's the nature of the beast in hip hop. Hip hop is a competitive sport type atmosphere with competitive machismo energy going at it. Even without machismo, even when you have, you know, just the women, you know what I mean? Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki, or Cardi and Nicki, or Lotto and Ice Spice, for example. Um, going at it. That's just how it is. You know what I mean? So I get where J. Cole's coming from, but at the same time, I don't really respect somebody calling your name out and you bowing out of it, because even if even if you're just a third party in it and they're just calling you out because you were somehow associated with the person. Like, for example, Mob Deep got called out in the '90s, right? Mob Deep got called out and hit him up, and they didn't, and then they responded. You know what I mean? And they was like a third party. It wasn't directly connected anyway in any sense of the word to to Bad Boy or to Biggie or to his camp or whatever, but they was from New York, so they, what I mean, they responded, what I mean, accordingly, because that's how we was brought up. You know what I'm saying? When we was brought up in hip hop, when we was taught the fundamentals of hip hop, that's what hip hop was based on. Competition, friendly competition. Not no violent shit, not taking it to gunplay. Obviously, it's gone in that direction a few times in hip hop, where it's gotten serious. But at this level, where I feel like Drake is like a now I'm not gonna feed into what Kendrick is saying, but I feel like Drake is a pop artist. You know, you know what I mean? In a sense, he transcends the culture. Not that he's a culture vulture, not that he doesn't belong to the culture. You know what I mean? I feel like derisively, because he has a really white sounding name, Aubrey. You know what I mean? They refer to him as Aubrey, to mock him in a sense, right? But I feel like his position in the game transcends hip hop. But can he survive this? You know what I mean? This obliteration, this annihilation of his character. Some of the things that Kendrick is saying in some of his diss records are pointing out not to Drake just being a culture vulture, not to him just being outside of the culture, outside of uh, you know stealing from other people, stealing flows from other people, which we've known that he has done in the past. I mean, he ripped off Hotline Bling from this one anonymous dude, right? But not just that, but the fact that Drake is a pedophile. You know what I mean? I feel like that allegation, is the one that could kill Drake. You know what I'm saying? That allegation is the one that could destroy his career and his life. You know what I mean? If people buy into that, if enough people buy in to that narrative that he is that, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of evidence for it. You know what I mean? Because, and I'm saying this as a Drake fan, you know what I mean? As an OVO fan, that been an OVO fan since he was on Degrassi. You know what I'm saying? I used to watch him on that show. It's before he even came out with Young Money, before he even had a rap career. He keeps in contact with a lot of stars that are underage. You know what I mean? A lot of underage celebrities, such as Millie Bobby Brown, such as Billie Eilish. You know what I mean? So these are allegations that Drake can't deny. You know what I'm saying? So what? Him being a culture vulture, him being too whitewashed, being from Canada, he's heard all that shit before, right? People have come and people have exposed, for example, Pusha T exposed his first his son Adonis, right, to the world. We didn't know nothing about Adonis before that, right? Before the Pusha T beef, right? But that all pales in comparison, in my opinion, to the allegations laid out on this song. The allegations laid out on this track, serious shit, man. You don't want to mess around with things like this, as we see with Diddy, as we see with other people. You don't want to mess around when it comes to those type of allegations. Vince McMahon, for example, those type of serious allegations when it comes to sexual misconduct. Now, we don't know if he was actually doing that, if he was actually a predator, right? But if he was, that could be detrimental to Drake. You know what I mean? We know that he was contacting them. That we do know, because there's text messages between him and Millie Bobby Brown. There's text messages between him and Billie Eilish when she was 17 years old. So that is true. But was he doing anything with them inappropriate? That we don't know. So I feel like that could be the nail in his coffin as well. And also, what really confused me though was like, why is Kendrick coming out with it now? Like, why is he talking about it now? Like, I mean, you knew about this shit, and all of a sudden you want to start to pull people's coat now about it. It doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? It's something that is bewildering to me, because if you knew this shit was going on back in the day and you used to be cool with Drake, that's another thing too. Like, he used to be cool. Like, him and Drake did features together, right? I mean, Drake pretty much does features with anybody. I mean, that was the point that he made in Euphoria, that Drake, um, you know, whoever's new hot, I mean, like if it's uh, Young Dirk, I mean, Lil Dirk, uh, Lil Baby, whoever, Yachty, whoever, Drake puts him on a song, puts him on a feature, and Drake, fucks with him. Whoever's new in the game like that, he likes to be in proximity to whoever's, whatever trend is popping. You know what I mean? Even in the Spanish market, he's done songs with Bad Bunny before. He's done songs with Romeo Santos before Drake has. So he likes to be at the forefront of every new kind of trend that's going on. That's how he's survived for so long. His longevity, by changing with the times. He's smart about that. But this could be the death nail in his coffin. I don't feel like is a lot of hardcore hip hop heads that really fucked with him from the beginning. You know what I mean? Like the people that are hardcore hip hop heads wasn't really fucking with Drake anyway. You know what I mean? A lot of the shit that Kendrick said, yo, Sean, what's good? What's going on, man? I want Sean to weigh in on this, man. What do you think, Sean? Is this the end of Drake? You know what I mean? Is this the end of his era? Did Kendrick really come at his head, or did Drake win the battle? Who do you got, Drake or Kendrick? Now I know Sean, he's been my boy since the fifth grade, and I know that he is a genius. Uh, he's a genius when it comes to his musical knowledge and his grasp of the hip hop game. You know what I mean? And I know that he doesn't fuck with Kendrick like that. You know what I mean? I don't think he really fucks with Drake like that either. You know what I'm saying? But just from uh, an objective standpoint, I don't really fuck with Kendrick. I do fuck with Drake, but I feel like uh, Drake lost this round. I don't feel like he got bodied, but I feel like it's kind of a death. I mean, a lot of Kendrick's lines were really subliminal shit. You know what I mean? Shit that you had to really look into to really get what he was saying. Like he didn't really say anything uh like he didn't like this wasn't no ether shit. You know what I mean? This wasn't Hove versus Nas because these two, like, they were getting at each other on some hidden shit. Like, you had to do your research and you had to do your Googling and your Wikipediaing in order to even understand where these two, you know what I mean? Like, where these two were really getting at each other. You know what I mean? Like, this beef is really weird. You know what I mean? And the beef is weird too because this shit's been going on for 8 years, and Kendrick, finally decided to put out a track about Drake. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you had beef with the dude, put the shit out, you know, before, well, I don't get that, you know. I mean, he got offended by something J. Cole said. You know what I mean? That between Aubrey, him and uh, Drake, him and Cole, but it is though. You know what I'm saying? They are the big three. Um, yeah, Sean said this made me listen to Kendrick for the first time ever. Yeah, uh, the angle that Drake came at it in his response was like, "Oh, Kendrick's he's a hypocrite because he's always talking that Black Power shit. At the same time, his wife is light skinned. You know what I mean? And mixed. You know what I mean? Like that's the angle he tried to come at it, and people will say, well, Kendrick was fucked up for involving Drake's family, but Drake involved Kendrick's family first. You know what I mean? Like, uh, but I feel like I don't know how Drake can recover. All I can say is that he better get some good ghostwriters, some better, some better ghostwriters to keep writing their shit because you know Rick Ross was a Sean. Correct me if I'm wrong. Rick Ross was in the beef too. Like when did him and Drake start having beef? Like all of a sudden, Rick Ross is dissing Drake. Like when did like when did they start having beef? You know what I mean? Like they made some, yeah, J. Cole bowing out. Let me tell you, I used to battle back in school and stuff, you know, back in the day. And when you battle in hip hop, you never bow out, man. You never punk out and you never say, I'm a there's no I'ma take the high road in hip hop. You know what I mean? There's no I'm a I'm gonna be the bigger person in hip hop. You know, like no, that we not on no Martin Luther King shit. No disrespect. You know what I mean? Like this is a competitive sport, but my like no, this you got to take it to your opponent. You got to come with fire, and then when you come with fire, you can't later denounce it and say I'm sorry. That's just that ain't the way it works. you, you know what I mean? That's the most unhip hop thing you could do. Like, nah, that that is that's not it, man. You know what I mean? I know you don't want to cause violence, you know what I mean? But at the same time, again, this is hip hop. You know what I mean? A student in the game would know that. You know, that's something you do. When somebody comes at your head, you come back equally as hard. Hove and Nas and taught us that back in the day. You know what I'm saying? This is what the game is about. You know, we don't do that over here. Bow out and all that. You want to be friendly and you want to be all lovey dovey with people. Go to R&B. You know what I mean? That's more suited for you. You know what I mean? Here you have Drake. He basically an R&B singer slash rapper. You know what I mean? But he's still in the game, engaging and coming at people. Okay, yeah. Sean says Ross never ducks smoke, but okay. But my point is, I didn't even know they had beef. That's the thing. That's the thing I respect about Rick Ross too. He survived 50. 50 for all those that's back in my era, you know, of hip hop, the 2000s. You know what I mean? 50 was the most ruthless battler there was. He wasn't great lyrically, but just the way he would come at you and just destroy you. You know what I mean? He started off in the game in 1999 with How to Rob, basically dissing everybody that existed in the game. That's how 50 entered into the world of hip hop. You know what I mean? And then from there, he just completely destroyed Ja Rule. He completely annihilated Ja Rule to the point that Ja Rule doesn't even exist anymore. You know what I mean? It's just a figment of history and people just talking about it in past tense. And he came at Rick Ross with the Officer Ricky shit, and Rick Ross survived it, and Rick Ross still strived from it. You know what I mean? So if you survive 50, uh, you'll survive anything. But I didn't even know him and uh, Drake was beefing like that back in the day. When I remember them, when Drake first came out, they were making hot shit together. You know, up until I guess very recently. I don't know how they had a falling out, but you know, Drake has had his share of beefs as well. He was completely annihilated by Pusha T back in the day. You know, a couple of years ago, and of course he destroyed Meek Mill. That's really the only victory that Drizzy really got. You know, is Meek Mill. You know, wow, you don't really want that smoke. I don't know why Drake would do that. Uh, see, it's weird because like I mean, you can't come and be like an R&B type singer, and then you get into beef, and then you want to act hard. Like other people will look at you like, "Yo, that's really you? Like that's not you, but my G, like you not that." You know what I mean? Like you can't do something like Tootsie Slide. Uh, you can't do something like Tootsie Slide. You know what I mean? And then come and try to attack people, you know, like use this lyrical beast, like you know what I mean? I feel like Drake makes good songs, but as a battle rapper and trying to act hard, that shit, I don't know. I always felt like he was out of his element with that. And plus, he lives such a secretive life. You know what I mean? That he, his whole, I mean, he's somebody that never does interviews, hardly ever. You know what I mean? He did that interview for Title a couple of years ago. Uh, that one sit down at his crib, and you know that was it. He's like a new Michael Jackson in a way. You know what I mean? Like I mean that comparison does make sense. I don't know if the comparison. Now I'm not saying that the comparison makes sense as far as him being, you know, inappropriate with children, but like he's secretive. Shit about him you don't really know. You know what I mean? He's not public with his life like that. You know what I mean? Like that too. Sean's right. I mentioned that he has ghostwriters and shit. And again, that works for an R&B singer. That works for a pop artist. That doesn't work for a rapper. For a rapper, if you don't write your own lyrics and somebody writes them for you, then you're not a real MC. You know what I mean? You're not a real MC now because what do you? I always said that. Basically, what are you getting paid to do? Anybody in the world could learn lyrics and then recite them. You know what I mean? That doesn't take talent. You know what I mean? So, uh, in a sense, Drake is not a true lyricist, a true hip hop lyricist like that. He does come off as somebody who is like trying to take advantage of the culture, trying to ride the culture to the best he can because he wasn't that great of an actor. So he kind of looked at music as a way to get in the game as far as his celebrity. but he did stick with it though. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why I got to give him his credit. He stuck with it. It wasn't like okay, he wasn't like uh dropping a couple of albums and then okay he dipped. You know what I mean? And then he went back to making movies, which he could have done because he was one of the biggest celebrities in the world through music. You know what I mean? He became the artist of the decade of the 2010s. To me, when I think of the 2010s, I think of his music. You know what I mean? There's no way when you can look at the 2010s and say a Drake song wasn't up there, whether it's Hotline Bling, whether it's In Your Feelings, whether it's Best I Ever Had, whatever, from 2009 to 2019, you know, those 10 years, that decade, he was the man. So he could have just dipped and he could have just went back to acting, but he didn't do that. You know what I'm saying? He stuck with hip hop and he rolled with hip hop. You know what I mean? So Sean's bringing up a good point. He don't write his own lyrics, and we know that. But at the same time, could he could he could he really be accused of using the culture in that way? I don't think so. Because if he was, he my boy would have been in he'd have been in the biggest Hollywood movies that you could be in right now. You know what I'm saying? If he was trying to position, if he didn't have a love for the music and a love for the art form in that way, he could have just used it and then dipped, but he didn't do that. You know what I mean? He stuck with it. So and he did come in the game at a time when hip hop was going through a change. You know what I mean? Like when when lyrics were getting a little bit softer, melodies were increasing. That whole gangster style that 50 and all them had done for years, that hardcore style was fading away. And you had Kanye coming out with 808 around that time, and people shitted on it. Right. Excuse me, Sean, my bad. Lee saying on this. Sean is is right. He's a phenomenal artist. He's just not an MC. But I'm saying, Sean, like people accuse him of being using hip hop as a way to get in the game, you know, as a way to get into the celebrity life to become famous. But I don't really think you could say that because he has a love for it. You know what I mean? He has a commitment to it. He hasn't dipped. He hasn't tried to make music. Excuse me, make movies like that. You know what I mean? Or go back to acting. A lot of people say if they're younger kids, they might not even know that Drake was on that show, Degrassi, because it wasn't like Degrassi was this big show either. You know what I mean? It was a show produced from Canada that came on Saturday mornings, you know, like at 9, 10 o'clock. You know what I mean? It wasn't, he wasn't really known for that. And he wasn't really the biggest star. He wasn't the star of the show either. You know what I mean? So I feel like the shift from, oh, you from Canada, you from, you know what I mean? You're not authentic, you're not real, you know, you just an actor coming in trying to play a role of a hip hop artist. I feel like that's not fair. You know what I mean? Drake has put in the work. Drake has put in the credentials. He might not be a great MC, might not write his own shit, but Kanye don't write his own shit either necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Dr. Dre, Diddy, you know what I mean? People like this, you know, they get props, but I feel like because he's from Canada. Yeah, Sean's right. You should thank Ja Rule. They paved the way for them. But he's from Canada. I mean, that gets old after a while. That's like battling me, and I'm in a wheelchair, and people. all they could focus on is just the wheelchair. After a while, the wheelchair disses get old. You know what I mean? Like it's like when people battled Eminem. All they could point to was that Eminem was a white boy. You know what I mean? Like, okay, we know he's a white boy. You know what I'm saying? We know that that's what it is with him. You don't have to keep going to that well. Like you sound corny now. The whole he's from Canada shit. Come on. Like I we know he's from Canada. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And like Kendrick brings up in the song, Kendrick's from the West Coast. There's not a lot of uh the major hip hop media is mostly located on the East Coast. Hot 97, the major stations, all East Coast, uh, New York vibe. And you know, for years we didn't fuck with the West Coast, so we kind of looked at the West Coast like Canada. You know what I mean? Might as well have been. You know what I mean? Some foreign ass country. You know what I mean? But yeah, Sean is correct. That melodic type hip hop, that love songs hip hop, Ja Rule paved the way for that shit. And he kind of saw into the future that it would be that. I mean, yeah, LL Cool J doing that back in the day, but that was about it. But Drake kind of made that his whole style, that whole singing, rapping type shit. And yeah, I just feel like the Drake hate is very unnecessary. I feel like a lot of the hate he gets is jealousy. You know what I mean? Like a lot of jealousy. Like dudes, I think a lot of men feel a way about liking certain Drake shit. Like, oh, I can't like that. You know, that's too soft. You know what I mean? Knowing that some of the shit he puts out is bangers. You know what I mean? They always gotta feel like they gotta like something that's hard. And if it ain't hard, if it ain't the locks or Dipset or 50, you know what I mean? Like it ain't some street shit. I can't like it, bro. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like I feel like uh, that's a lot of the hate that Drake gets. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that vibe is past. You know what I mean? Like that's in the past. That sort of street shit vibe. You know what I mean? Like I love the locks. I love Dipset. You know what I mean? Like I grew up to that, but at the same time, you mature and you become older and your tastes change. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, I can appreciate something different, and that's what hip hop to me has always been about. This diversity. I feel like because Drake became so popular, that's why he became so hated. Because it's like with Mayweather in boxing, right? Mayweather became so popular in boxing that a lot of people hated on Mayweather, but they couldn't. If you ask a Mayweather hater, why you hate Floyd Mayweather so much? You know what I mean? They didn't really know why they hated him so much. They just did. You know, or like people that hate LeBron. You know what I mean? Like, oh, why you hating on LeBron? I don't know. I just do. You know what I mean? Like, you know, they couldn't really explain it. And their excuse would be like, well, he's not Jordan. You know what I mean? So what? He's not supposed to be Jordan. You know, what I mean? Like you compare him to somebody back in the day. You know what I mean? Like when the game was totally different. You know, I feel like in your field, in your endeavor, when you rise to a certain level, you get so many haters for no particular reason. And I feel like that kind of typified the Drake era, where like Drake had so many haters. You know what I mean? Like me just saying I like Drake's music. I like certain songs of Drake. back in the day in my block, my old block, it, people would just be coming at me like, "Yo, you like Drake? That's some soft shit. That's some real pussy shit." Liking Drake, just saying that I like certain songs of this nigga. You know what I mean? Like, not even, uh, you know what I mean? Like, not necessarily buying a whole album of him because I never bought a Drake album. You know what I'm saying? Ever in my life. Because he came out in an era when albums was totally irrelevant. The streaming era. And that's another thing. Like, uh, he came along at a time when the way we consume music changed. Views has to be a game changer of an album because of how it impacted the music industry as a whole, putting it out on Spotify, streaming it, changing the game. Back in the 90s, you had artists in the music business, not just in hip hop, but even in rock and roll, scared of streaming. When Napster and the Kazaa and all them first came out, they were scared of it because it, it was going to seem to destroy the music business. But then as years went on, people continued to stream, they continued to stream, and it changed. And Views was one of the first albums to do that. You know what I mean? Change the way that music was consumed, just like how Guess Who's Back changed it in a street level. And 50 blew up with the mixtape game. And everybody after 50 had a mixtape all of a sudden. You know what I mean? So you got to give him credit for that. But what I'm saying is that, like, every rapper can't be the same. You know what I mean? Every rapper can't be hardcore. Every rapper can't be the Locks, 50, Dipset. You have to have different types of artists. You know what I mean? So because Drake does this kind of quote unquote soft music, you know what I mean? They hate on him, but ask yourself, was okay, taking out those examples, but say for example, your favorite artist was Tupac. Tupac Shakur was not the hardcore gangster that y'all complete Tupac stands feel that he was. You know what I'm saying? Y'all looking at a distorted view of history when you look at Tupac. He was a mama's boy, and if you go back and look, I'm not saying that he was gay, but if you go back and look at that interview when he was 15 years old, you might think that if he was to become a rap artist, he would start releasing moist type shit like Drake put out, right? You know what I'm saying? Because he was not the hardest core of the hardest core street dudes out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now. And he's supposed to be this god of gangster rap, this god of the streets, this martyr, this person that Kendrick Lamar models himself after or wants to be like. You know what I'm saying? Nas, another example. Nas was not this hardcore street uh nigga that y'all portray him as. You know, you know what I'm saying? Like, looking at it through revisionist history. So y'all holding Drake up to a standard that never existed for any mainstream rapper that has ever gotten to his level. You know what I'm saying? You holding him up to a standard that you want him to be like Wu Tang. You want him to be like the Locks. You want him to be like Dipset. But these artists, they never really got to a mainstream level. These were marginal artists at best. Not to say that they didn't have classics and they didn't impact the culture, because Dipset impacted the culture so much that everybody in New York started turning blood just for all the strength of hearing their music. But at the same time, they wasn't, they had a fake image too. They had a industry crafting them as well, moving them in a certain direction as well. You know what I'm saying? Every artist has that, but I guarantee your favorite rapper is portraying an image on record that is not in real life. More so back in the day, in the hardcore era of hip hop, where everybody was uh, selling drugs, gang banging, shooting up everything. You know they really wasn't doing that. Like that was a fake image. you know, you know, you know what I mean? That they was selling you. At least with this, Drake is who he says he is. He is really is a guy from uh, Canada that uh, started on a white teen TV show and portrayed a dude in a wheelchair. You know what I mean? Come on, like he really was that. You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't telling somebody else's life story like Nas really was. You know what I mean? Telling somebody else's story that another person went through. He's telling his own story. Like Kendrick is sitting out here saying that he's crafting fake stories about his life. But what fake stories? I mean, yeah, maybe you don't want to tell you that he got kids here and he got kids there, but that's really nobody's business in a sense. I feel like, I mean, that is a personal issue. Like, why should people's kids be exposed to in this crazy world that we live in social media? You know what I mean? Like, if he wants to keep his kids a secret from the public, let him keep his kids a secret from the public. I mean, because when you put out kids in the public, as you saw with Jay-Z and Beyonce, uh, they get a lot of ridicule. Blue Ivy, when she was first born, she got so much hate and so much ridicule from grown ass motherfuckers, you know what I mean, that should know better. You know what I mean? So much criticism. They should know better than what they was doing to this poor little girl. You know what I mean? Picking on her, especially from the women. You know what I mean? So if he wants to keep his life a secret, then fine. The only thing I don't rock with is the text messaging of like the female celebrities that he was supposedly text messaging. But you gotta understand too. Here's another side to it, and this is what they used to always say about MJ. You know, what I mean, this is another comparison to Michael Jackson. I feel like Drake was a child star. Drake started in Degrassi when he was like 13, 14, whatever on that show. Like when it first started, like when his character was walking, because the character, yeah, they call him Wheelchair Jimmy. But if you follow the storylines of the show, which I know a lot of people didn't, you know, you know what I mean. But he got shot on the show. Like he wasn't. It wasn't like he had cerebral palsy or some shit. He was shot on the show. You know what I mean? So when the character was walking, that's when he started on that show. And he was like 13, 14. And a lot of these stars, we don't know what child stars go through. You know what I mean? Child stars, they have their own unique world because it's a very unique situation to be a child star and be in front of the public eye. You know what I mean? So maybe he has some kind of connection with Millie Bobby Brown, some kind of, he can sympathize with them in a sense, with Millie Bobby Brown and Billie Eilish now. You know what I mean? The fact that in the same way that MJ used to say he could understand and empathize with the likes of Emmanuel Lewis or Macaulay Culkin or some of these other uh, people. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that it's right to do anything with them sexually. We don't know that. You know what I'm saying? We wasn't there. You know what I mean? that is something that we all fall into. Even me with the Vince McMahon video, and I realized that we're talking about this kind of alleged allegations like if we really know, if we was there in the room and we seen uh, Drake doing something inappropriate with Millie Bobby Brown or Billie Eilish or any of these young girls. We wasn't there. We don't know. You know what I'm saying? We're going on hearsay. You know what I mean? So, playing devil's advocate, I'll say maybe that was the reason why he had these friendships with these child stars because they have their own world. Only they know what they go through as children and young adults that are in the entertainment industry and acting, being thrusted onto the spotlight in the way there was. Through TV. We don't. You know what I'm saying? Now the fact that they all happen to be female, that kind of raises an eyebrow in a sense. But I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to these particular allegations. Uh, Sean says he thinks Rick, yeah, because Ross is going hard on Drake. I mean, Ross is destroy. He's going hard on Drake. You know what I mean? This battle, excuse me, is involving everybody in hip hop right now. You know what I mean? And it's good for the culture in a sense because we get our minds off of the Diddy shit. You know what I mean? Like we get our attentions pulled away from this because I got tired of hearing it. You know what I mean? I got tired of. It's good to see something a little bit more lighthearted and a little bit more easy. We all have our different opinions. Um, but I just feel like going after Drake's biracialness and going after his Canadianness and the fact that I seen even some people, going after uh his mom's heritage and shit, that's kind of corny, man. You know what I mean? Like I don't I don't necessarily rock with that. I feel like if you got skills, you got skills. I mean, I know that there is such a thing as culture vultures in the culture, obviously. You know what I mean? But I look at people like Vlad TV is more along those lines. The people that, and I'm not defending Drake, you know what I mean? Like I'm saying, I'm a Drake fan, but I'm not necessarily saying that Drake is all right in a sense. But I feel like uh, there are people that are real culture vultures. Drake contributed to hip hop history. Drake put into the culture. He didn't just take out from it. You know what I mean? He puts his time and then puts his effort into it. Now, can he compare to Rick Ross? In a sense, lyrically, no, of course he can't. You know what I mean? Can he compare to even Kendrick Lamar? No, of course he can't. J. Cole, well, him and J. Cole were on the same. See, that's why I think J. Cole should have gotten this beef, man, because people don't realize J. Cole is one of the most brilliant. J. Cole is the Jay-Z of this era. You know what I'm saying? J. Cole's the Jay-Z of this era. You know what I mean? If he'd have got in on this beef, he'd have destroyed Kendrick. I feel like him and Drake, their team together, would have destroyed Kendrick. You know what I mean? But him bowing out, he's never going to get the respect he deserves. Now, when it comes to Cole, he's going to have to get on Drink Champs and explain himself. He's going to have to get and explain himself to the culture why he chose to take that route. You know what I mean? Bowing out. But this is really exciting. This is really heating up. I'm glad this is happening. And finally, we have something in hip hop that is making people bring their lyrical best. You know what I mean? Because for the longest, lyricism was lost in hip hop. We talked about it. The late 2010s was some of the worst years for lyricism in hip hop. When the mumble rap and the drill really started to take heed, and no disrespect to any drill rappers, I'm not trying to be like a Charleston White type person, type person to disrespect the memory of like King Vaughn or any of those guys. I didn't really listen to their music, you know what I mean? But um, that SoundCloud era of hip hop, of the late 2010s, when you had like the Lil Pumps, the King Vaughns, all them type dudes, the G Herbos. Again, I just know these names from hearing a couple of songs from them. I never really listened to any of their shit. It was just beats. You know what I mean? Like nobody was bringing the heat lyrically. You know what I mean? So it's it's good to see in hip hop that lyricism is making a comeback. You know what I mean? Because it's a place for everything. You know what I mean? It's a place for diversity in sound, diversity in thought, diversity in style. Everybody don't have to look and sound the same, and that was the thing that was really turning me off from music um for a long while was that unless you dug into the underground and unless you got into like the Troy Aves and the real underground people that people didn't like the mainstream wouldn't know about, in the mainstream, you wasn't really getting nobody that was good. You know what I mean? The mainstream really have fallen off. And you had to dig for yourself to find good music. Other than J. Cole. You know what I mean? But uh not okay, yeah. Nas and Ghostface. Look at that. You know what I mean? But it's about a lot of the newer rappers though, Sean, like it didn't I didn't really see nothing really impressing me. A lot of '90s rappers, you know what I mean, they're still doing their thing. You know what I mean? They're still like the '90s era in hip hop will never be surpassed, I feel like, because it was so much talent in the game. There's a lot of talent right now, and this battle's bringing it to the forefront, and hopefully this will be the new movement we're going forth from here and this will put an end to the drill shit, that kind of corny mumble rap shit. You know what I mean? Because I really wasn't feeling that whole era at all. You know, they had hard beats, but the beats that was it. It was just beats. You know, I mean, good beats. That was it. But anyway, we gotta see, is this the end of the Drake era? Is Drake finished? I don't think so, man. I think Drake is gonna survive this. You know what I'm saying? Really, Kendrick didn't really come out with anything new, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, he obliterated him lyrically. Drake's response was weak as fuck. You know what I mean? Like Drake's response was weak, but at the same time, he didn't come out Drake other than the pedophile allegations. Yeah, I know. Uh, he didn't come out other than the pedophile allegations. Kendrick didn't come out with nothing really that was like, oh shit. We didn't know that about Drake. It's the same shit people been, even the pedophile allegations, the same shit people been saying for years about Drake. You know what I mean? He didn't really come out with nothing like will make me go. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like Drake's gonna continue doing what he do, and his haters are gonna continue doing what they do because I mean, but we are in a new era. We are in a new decade, though. We are in a new era. You know what I mean? So everybody falls off. You know what I mean? 50 was the man at one time. Ja was the man at one time. Everybody falls off. You either fall off or you die. You know what I mean? You either fall off, and sometimes when you fall off hard. But 50 didn't really fall off because let me tell you why. He bounced back with his producing. Sean says the allegations are bullshit. Yeah, I think so too, Sean. I mean, the texting and everything, just texting them, okay, people consider that as inappropriate, and maybe it was, but just texting them, but we don't know if he did anything further than that that could incriminate him. You know, you know what I'm saying? But people are jumping on this shit because this is the new wave now. Everybody wants to accuse since R. Kelly, everybody wants to accuse every celebrity of doing inappropriate shit. You know what I mean? This one, our word, this one, this one is a pedophile. You know what I mean? Like, this is the new wave now. You know what I'm saying? Like, accuse a random celebrity of being sexually inappropriate with a minor or with a woman without her consent. You know what I mean? Like the hip hop version of Me Too, and that shit just corny, man. You know what I mean? Pointing out, trying to get a hold of shit you don't know anything about. Keep it to the lyrics, keep it about the lyrics, keep it about the sport of hip hop, the art of hip hop, and you keep it at that level, and that's it. You know what I mean? But I feel like Drake's gonna continue to do what he do, man. You know, Drake is an era onto him. He's an era onto himself. In a way, his shit is like he's this era's Michael Jackson. In a way, I hate to say it, man, but he dominated for so long. 10 years he was on top of the game. That's a hell of a run. You know, I mean, Hove had a hell of a run. Hove had a tremendous run. You know what I mean? From 98, Hard Knock Life to 2004 when he retired the first time, not counting the American Gangster soundtrack that he put out. Right? He had a tremendous run. That was his run. There was a time when you couldn't turn on the radio without hearing him. Eminem had a hell of a run, even though, yeah, like I fucked with his music, but I feel like Eminem's run was overblown. Eminem was overrated. From 2000, uh, from 2001 to like '04, and then after '04, I feel like anybody that likes an Eminem album after '04, I don't know what they're talking about because he only had three good albums, in my opinion, right? 50 had a hell of a run around the same time. You know what I mean? Like, because 50 and Eminem was kind of connected. Eminem had the mainstream, 50 had the hood. That's why in the 2000s review video here on this channel, I put 50 and Eminem because I feel like one had the hood, one had the suburbs. You know what I mean? Um, and their run was kind of at the same time, but 50 transitioned to other types of TV and whatever. But Drake's run was a whole decade. Drake's run was like looking at Drake in the 2010s was like looking at Michael Jackson in the 80s. You know what I mean? He dominated the entire decade. You know what I mean? Or looking at Mariah Carey shit in the 90s. You know, you know what I mean? Where like he was all over the place. Like you can't look. If I tell Alexa right now to play songs from the 2010s, I guarantee you 4 or 5 of those songs will be Drake songs. You know what I mean? From the whole era of the 2010s. You know, that's just how it is. You know, he'll go down as one of those artists. You know what I'm saying? One of those decade defining artists. Like you look at like our parents' generation, the Temptations. They was in the 60s. You know what I mean? In the 80s, Michael Jackson, Prince. You know what I mean? He'll go down as that. Kendrick won't. Not even in hip hop. Not even just the realm of hip hop. He won't even scratch the top 5 as far as sales in this era, in my opinion. To a hardcore hip hop head, maybe. To somebody that's really political, conscious, maybe he will. But he won't. He won't be approaching Drake's level. He won't. You know. You know. Drake's on a whole nother level. But that has nothing to do with credentials as far as lyrics. But I'm just saying. You know. But maybe that's the price of success. When you become so successful, people start to think, "Oh, well, he's too big now." You know what I mean? Like, but me, I'm not gonna prematurely call it. I'll say Drake got destroyed in this battle, but at the same time, you could lose the battle, but not lose the war. You know what I mean? Like, if he still continues to make songs and he still continues to dominate, and Kendrick still is not relevant except to the hardest core of hip hop heads, you know, then it'll be what it'll be. You know what I mean? Peace. Thank you, Sean, for contributing. Yo, man, this has been a good one. Love y'all. Peace.